Ahmed Knowmadic Ali has a strong record of serving Edmontonians. He has fought for transparency on the Law Enforcement Review Board of Alberta, pushed for equality in the Edmonton Arts Council, and connected communities through resources through the Somali Canadian Women Children's Association. He is the co-founder of Breath and Poetry. He is a former poet laureate. And over the past 10 years, he has spread his love for poetry with youth across the city. He is all in for the North Side, as this campaign kind of represents, and representing word Tastawiyiniwak in the upcoming municipal elections. Welcome, Knowmadic, to the Keep Time Studio. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's honestly a pleasure, and thank you for interviewing the candidates and providing the public an opportunity to hear their candidates and see what they're up to. So.
Awesome. Well, I want to get right into your candidacy. You believe the City Council should focus on everyone. In specific, you mentioned you want to increase accessibility and encourage Edmontonians to lead a healthy lifestyle. If elected to City Council, how will you directly affect the broad community in that way?
Thank you. It's a good question. So for me personally, I always think about being future planning and preparing the city for any of the challenges or circumstances that may arise. So for me, providing citizens things like early childhood development, which are my priority, it's about creating or removing some of the challenges financially or even socially that doesn't really allow us to focus on transit or mobility. And so for me personally, it's about really empowering individuals to believe in themselves. So removing obstacles like affordable homes, and so they don't have to worry about their rent, so that they can do things recreational, like value the bike lanes. Because if you're worrying about your rent, I'm not sure bike lanes are necessarily something you're interested in. And so providing Edmontonians the opportunity to worry less about rent, about mental health challenges, taking care of their family, and more about how do I become a better Edmontonian, how do I thrive, rather than just strictly focusing on survival.
What steps will you take as a City Council candidate to make it clear that you will not tolerate hatred and division in our city? Are there any policies that you have in place to combat, say, the rise in violence to our Muslim brothers and sisters?
I want to be very mindful and careful that I don't just create something, because what I've learned in the Edmonton Arts Council and at the Law Enforcement Review Board is a lot of times when it comes to racism, it's a systemic issue. And the challenge is that the people who are participating in that racism may not even recognize it. And so often when you challenge somebody and you say, hey, that was kind of racist or that was offensive, they go, I'm not racist. And from their perspective, they may not think of that. So for me, it's really to educate folks on what may be identified as racism, and really bringing a light to those challenges that they may not see, because lived experience is very important when it comes to these. And if you're not experiencing the challenges of racism or misogyny or homophobia, then you don't really know the experience of those individuals. And so I really want to make sure that I'm not only taking care of the people who are going through these challenges, but also to welcome those who may not understand the challenges. Because I always say, have you ever bought shoes, cars, or clothes before you buy it? You don't notice it anywhere, but as soon as you buy it, you see it everywhere. That's lived experience. And I want to provide people the opportunity to see that for themselves. And so whatever policy comes forward, it would definitely be supported by the residents of Tastawiyiniwak in a way that they find is supportive. And I want to really engage and bring it from a community perspective rather than I think this is what's best.
I want to talk a little bit about the Two-Spirit LGBTQ plus community and how they're often disproportionately affected by the housing insecurities, institutional violence, and barriers to living their full and open lives. If elected to City Council, how will you help address these concerns that have historically been marginalized or disregarded in the political spheres?
That's a good question. So when it comes to affordable homes, a lot of times we just think there's this one blanket, we just need to give people homes. But there are challenges that we are going through. And again, it goes back to the system. It's about educating those individuals who are in the power to recognize their biases and to work through their biases. And so for me personally, it would be to really provide knowledge to city workers who serve the individuals who require some of these services, to recognize that if it's beyond their capacity or if there is beyond their understanding, to get support from the city. And providing that opportunity, it's almost like create something, and if they need to utilize it, it's present. But I'd be 100% fighting unequivocally for affordable homes and making sure, especially those who are marginalized, do get an opportunity with the handout.
Do you believe housing is the most important thing to address the poverty, especially like the homelessness in our city? Do you think housing is the key issue that needs to be resolved to help our marginalized communities?
Housing is a key point or key aspect of that, but there are a lot of other challenges as well, right? There are a lot of individuals who are dealing with mental health issues and addictions. We can just say, hey, here, you get into a home, but then there are also the challenges they're dealing with of becoming better citizens. Maybe they're in a position in life what might not really allow them to thrive. And so affordable homes is the start. It is the key area to start from, but it's only point one of 3 points, which would be one is affordable homes. Make sure that they have a place that they can call home. They feel safe. They don't have to worry about making rent. The second step would be providing resources to make them better Edmontonians, feel like they're valuable members of the community, less alienation, less criminalizing the population. And then the third step would be allow them to thrive by supporting them and creating avenues where they can become artists, or because we all have talents, but the challenges of being a human and living really puts a barrier to that. Because even myself as a Somali, a lot of times they say, hey, bring your Somali community to this event, and I'm like, I can't speak on behalf of my Somali community because I'm an artist. I'm in a point in my life where I can thrive, and a lot of people are just trying to survive, so we should go to them and meet them together so I can translate, but I can't speak on behalf of my community.
Fair enough. How best might we address the rise in opiate use in our city? As a city councilor, does it worry you how abundant fentanyl is in our streets and how it affects our vulnerable population?
It honestly, it's upsetting, like, to say the least. To For individuals to make money off of people who are already going through so many challenging circumstances. One thing that really frustrated me was the removal of the safe injection sites. I don't understand how we are not providing individuals safe opportunities to do something they would do regardless, but also that provides an opportunity for us to build relationships with these folks and recognize what challenges they are going through. And that's a pivotal moment to really help them change their lives. But when you don't have access to them and they're transient, because a lot of people who are dealing with addiction are transient, and so you don't know where to find them and how to follow up with them. And so safety injection site was a perfect opportunity to get a jump off from that. But for me, I would work towards any supporting organizations like Reach Edmonton and Yes, who are already doing some of this great work, and finding how do we complement their work rather than creating something brand new or a policy just because I think this would be best, but working with the community who are already doing that and say, what do you need from the city?
The city of Vancouver endorses lowering the voting age to 16 in the municipal elections. This is something that you say you unequivocally endorse. Do you want to talk a little bit about the impact of possibly lowering our voting age and how that would affect our political community?
An indigenous elder said it best. We don't inherit the land, we borrow it from our grandchildren. So my mentality is, if we are creating all of these policies and all these rules and regulations that is meant to beautify our city for the long term, why not have the input of the residents who will be benefiting from these services or may be encumbered by these services? So allowing individuals who are 16 years of age to participate in the election only betters our city because they come from a young perspective. Often we are challenged by our own biases, and as we age, we pick up certain biases and we without intention remove certain knowledge or not accept certain knowledge. But as a youth, I think they come in fresh and they're willing to challenge themselves and challenge elders. And so I think it's great. In fact, I think it should even go beyond that. And as soon as people enter high school, they should be learning about politics, because especially civic, especially in the municipal level, this is your water, your transit, your roads. These are the things that are most integral for you as an individual. And if we're preparing something for the future, we might as well have the future at the table.
Can you talk to me a little bit about your relationship with the healthcare industry and why you unequivocally respect and love what they're doing, and especially what you could do as a city councilor to help them?
So my wife is a registered nurse, and a lot of my family members are through her side are in the health field. And I know, as a person who's had surgeries or had to go to the hospital, the amount of work that healthcare workers do, especially nurses, and I know how much care they give you. And I know doctors do a lot of work, but nurses are usually the go between the patients and the doctors. And so for me personally, knowing with that experience of having to be at a hospital and being comforted by a nurse, I know how much they mean. And so currently with the provincial government, I have a direct relation to my wife, so I know the challenges she's going through. And so with the current pandemic ongoing and the already strain that nurses are going through, now they're starting to attack their resources, their financial income, and their sustainability. And so personally for me, it's just making sure, because again, it's relatable, it's directly connected to my wife, and it's about supporting workers who often do the work but don't necessarily are out in forefront, because nurses aren't somebody you'll see as, hey, you fight for me. It's something that they do out of care. It may be their jobs, but I think we really need to consider when we get sick, these are the individuals that are looking after us. So we need to look after them before we get sick and not wait until we get sick, provide them the resources so we don't have to worry about the beds that we need in. And so it goes beyond just myself and my wife. Is if we want Edmontonians to live a happy and healthy life, we have to ensure their mental health and also make them feel like they can have a safe place to go to, or they don't have to worry about going out of pocket. These things are very valuable.
Emerging from the COVID pandemic, as more people get vaccinated, do you have any plans to protect our local economy, to create a vibrant economy, and how do you plan to attract new investment into our emerging fields?
So speaking with the individuals in Ward Tastawiyiniwak, I've been at the doors for about 4 hours a day, and it's been lovely. I think this is the best interaction and the best way to learn from constituents. I think right now, currently, there is the issue with people having transit. I really want to support artificial intelligence industry, and also when it comes to open data. These things are necessary for us to become better. And also, I really want to, and I have involved my child in programming and coding, because those are languages that are essential now in the computer age. So first and foremost, I don't want businesses to feel like they have to put a mask mandate forward. Then that creates tension between them and their customers. I want the city to take responsibility and not offload those type of things onto the businesses. Especially now during COVID, there are already the constraint of having people come through the doors. So now when you have a politicized issue like masks, you even create more strain for the businesses. Most recently, Mercer shut down. And unfortunately, you would think with the arena being built there that they'd get more services, but that's not the case. And so for me, a lot of the money going towards that arena, rather than really supporting the businesses, takes away from it, creates more homelessness, creates more challenges, and more isolation. And so it's about really working out of that and giving the businesses a way to thrive within themselves, and also increasing the amount of contracts diverse businesses get with the city. And I want to support Ward Tastawiyiniwak in getting a business association, because it currently doesn't have that. And business associations do the work for those businesses and fight hard. And so I want them to worry less about how to be better and more worry about what they're better at, if that makes sense.
Fair enough. You have spent some time on the Law Enforcement Review Board. I want to ask you a little bit about policing in our city. Do you believe there needs to be a broad police reform, or what's your opinion on policing, and how should we be looking at it?
So I believe that the policing issue is a systemic issue. It goes beyond just, so if we can go what the city has a capacity on, which is the budgeting. So the way the city of Edmonton budgets or even increases budget, I believe is dependent on population. So the city of Edmonton's, the EPS receives the highest has the highest budget in all of, I wouldn't say, I don't want to get this incorrect, but they have significantly higher than most municipalities. And so for me, it's about having or providing the police an opportunity to worry less about things like mental health calls or having worry about non-emergency calls, and focus on building better relationships with the city. Because currently it comes off as more as you need us, and without us you wouldn't be anywhere, and less than we're here to serve you and we want to make sure you feel safe in your own home. And so I really want to look at what the budget is and find ways to support other initiatives, much like Reach and Yes, who are doing some of the work with our at-risk communities, so that we don't criminalize individuals. A lot of the individuals who are criminalized are Indigenous and identify as a person of color. And so I want to make sure that we are supporting the police, because I do believe the police are an integral part of the community, but I want to make sure that they're starting to build trust and their service is based on serve rather than enforcement. And so looking at the budget would be something that I need to do before even talking about the changes that I want to make. But I do think there is an important need right now to make sure that the police are taking care of serving, and that community organizations are taking care of the population at large, because that's what they're good at. And so I found, even at the law enforcement board, I found a lot of the challenges that happen with interactions between the police and the public is related to mental health. And so if we worry, or not worry necessarily, but if we focus on alleviating that challenge, I think there will be less issues with the complaints that police get, and less worry about talking about this is the crime that's going on, you need us, and more of how do we serve your community.
Do you think Canada has a humanitarian role to play in the pulling out of, say, Afghan people who helped our military, or do you have any opinions on that?
So on a municipal level, so that's a very complicated situation, and obviously it breaks my heart that the people in Afghanistan are going through that. And again, it goes to show we may think we know best in terms of this is what a country can do best, but oftentimes the ground up is better, learning what they need help with. On a municipal level, I would make sure that if we have the opportunity to support refugees who are looking for opportunities, who may be educated or may be looking for support, to find them an opportunity to give a sanctuary city here, where if they do come here as refugees, provide them an opportunity to benefit from the transit and become better citizens, and not have to wait until they are citizens to utilize their services. We want to start from early on and provide people opportunity, because in all honesty, refugees in Edmonton contribute to so much of its growth. Right? The doctors that are here, the artists that are here, come from diverse backgrounds and challenges. Myself, as an example, I'm a refugee and fled Somalia because of the war that was going on. And it took me a long time to really get centered in Canada, but I know the value that Canada has given me, and giving back is what's my number one most priority. And so if we support those individuals and make them feel like they are Canadian, it will really enrich our city, period. And so I want to focus more on the municipal level and provide them something for them here, if and when the federal government decides to do something about it, that Edmonton is a city that welcomes refugees.
Well, thank you for coming. It was a pleasure to talk to you again.
Yep, no, and again, thank you so much. And I'm grateful to be here. And I think it's very important for us to recognize, even myself, I am an immigrant here, and we are on Treaty 6 territory. And I think it's very valuable for us to always work from that point of reference, to try to learn as much as we can about the treaties, what they mean, and also what the Truth and Reconciliation has brought forward, and support some of those initiatives as well, because I do think there's an over-criminalization of the Indigenous community, and I do think that they have an amazing amount of culture that could benefit the city of Edmonton, and so I would really love to incorporate that as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you.